Very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to take a call in the third reading of this bill. I think we've had an extremely interesting debate actually today, and while being an urgency for a number of matters in this urgency motion calls into question the meaning of the word urgency, this bill has this opportunity that we've been offered here today I think has been useful, and I'd like to congratulate members on all sides of the House for their contributions, particularly Dr Kennedy Graham. This is an issue on which there is a broad consensus between the National and Labor parties around the issue of free trade. There are some differences in emphasis and nuance, but it's an issue where the Green Party do have a different view, and I think it's good that Dr Graham has taken the opportunity to put those views out there. And as I said in some earlier speeches, I certainly share some of the concerns that he's raised about an absolutist approach to free trade. Free trade is not magic. Free trade is not the panacea of all things. It's, to my mind, an important part of our economic well-being and of a global economy where people can get the benefits of their labours. But it isn't everything, and it shouldn't be put up on a pedestal to be in some way or other above and beyond rigorous analysis, and I think that's what Dr Graham has brought to the debate today. As a number of other speakers have mentioned, this is a high-quality free trade agreement, bilateral free trade agreement. It makes a number of positive moves in advance of the ASEAN free trade agreement, and I think that's good when we are doing bilateral free trade agreements, that we build on what has been done before. And the ASEAN agreement offers a lot of potential for New Zealand exporters, but in a number of key areas this agreement brings in tariff reductions well in advance of that period of time. As with other agreements, there are phased tariff reductions in the Malaysian free trade agreement, but 95% of those reductions will take place on the day that this agreement comes into force once the House has dealt with it. And that's a very impressive achievement, and one that all of the officials and those not only from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade but also from other departments who have been involved can be justifiably proud of. The final phase of bringing in tariff reductions will be by 2016, and that will get us to, as has been stated before, 99.5% of the tariffs removed. That is indeed an excellent agreement. It's one that offers huge scope for manufacturers, for exporters, and indeed for service providers. And this, our trade with Malaysia has some large component which is around the export of goods, but it also has a growing component around services and indeed a historical connection to services, particularly in the education area. So there is a lot in this agreement that New Zealand can be proud of and also see an opportunity to exploit. As was stated in earlier readings, the 0.5% that's remaining is there as a result mainly of discussions around cultural and religious matters, particularly to do with alcohol. And I just want to restate the comment I made in the committee stages of this debate, that I do believe the way that the national interest analysis describes New Zealand's enthusiasm for 100% of the tariffs to be removed is, I think, a little unfortunate, because I think the recognition both from Mr Grosser and from Dr Graham in the earlier part of the debate was that we have to respect other countries where there are issues, particularly ones of a cultural or religious nature. And I do think that brings us back to my concern that New Zealand has, from time to time in trade negotiations, taken a very absolutist stance. And not only is it potentially difficult in terms of other countries or our respect for other countries' cultural and religious beliefs, I also think from a negotiating point of view, it's sometimes seen New Zealand in less than an advantageous position when we've pretty much given everything away, but we're still trying to negotiate. The other aspect, Mr Speaker, that I do want to reflect on again is the importance of the environment cooperation and labour cooperation agreements that are of a treaty status. They sit alongside the free trade agreement and are to be considered together as being the engine room of the next stage of our relationship with Malaysia and Malaysia's relationship with us. These agreements in the past have sometimes been seen as just an add-on, something there to placate people who think that we need free trade to be more than just free trade. We need to see it in a wider economic context. I take comfort from the Minister's statement that he understands that environment and labour cooperation are now an important part of our negotiations with other countries. There is a lot of opportunities for New Zealanders in the environmental area in terms of services, and I think the Environment Cooperation Agreement can be used for leverage for those service providers. We need to make sure that we learn also from the Malaysians, because all over Asia at the moment issues around sustainable development loom large for governments and for people, and we need to be able to be there contributing our skill and technical knowledge, learning from what's being developed in those countries, and making sure that we have, as part of our ongoing relationship with these countries, strong environmental standards, strong labour standards, and New Zealand can be proud of the fact that we've led the way in making these part of free trade agreements. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to conclude by again congratulating the Minister and indeed previous Ministers Phil Goff and Jim Sutton on having got us to the position that we are today, and hope that the Malaysian Free Trade Agreement will not only see an increase in wealth for New Zealanders through increased exports and services, but also see a deeper, stronger relationship between New Zealand and Malaysia across trade, environment, labour and other fronts.